It was the season of true sweat, callous and trepidation. In desolate proximity to the social lady with the right hand, to the portrait of the artist self-crucified, to the wasp, the squids with the painted Egyptian eye, the polished, upright octopods, the painted caterpillars, the moths, the toads, the armadillo, the slate bas-reliefs of fossilized reptiles. It was the time of mythic insects, wisps of creatures from the deeps, of miniature, palpable mastodons. William Kent was a Nietzschean at heart, an admirer of Zarathustra, who, you may recall, possessed a unique pair of hands. One, gentle, curvaceous, conformant, reserved for his friends. The other, a bristly, snapping claw in store for his enemies. On occasion, in a mischievous reversal of the Nietzschean proposition, Bill would slip a friend, and I can attest to that, the clamp-like claw, augmented and boosted, as you might guess, by a stiff Gothic middle finger. Bill Kent was an amiable man. But finally, I must offer one more evocation from the New Haven days. An evocation that is due and must include one bemused, detached, but ever observant Lulu Dramatis persona, always set to dominate from every nook and cranny of this scene, and do that at once. And it was Maggie, his beloved cat. He had been feeding her Friskies overlaid with the contents of a can of Doxyclans. The resulting saline mush was prematurely taking Maggie out of this world, and she sensed it. Bill one day lamented to me that Maggie was going off for food. Informed of the situation, I came up with a stratagem. Drain and rinse the clams in water beforehand, then put them on the Friskies and top the whole with a drizzle of olive oil. A message that he later turned into practice for his own linguine. Maggie saw me do it and took to the new concoction enthusiastically. Thereafter, perhaps feeling as I did that she had been given a new lease on life, on occasion when I happened to be there, she would now and then leap onto my lap and favor me with a purr. Thank you.
Another very seriously long-term friend, Sandy Swan,
Hi.
who was the wife of Bill Scarden, and you may have seen some of Bill Scarden's works too. Sandy has visited countless times over the years and was once a dealer, so
Yes.
she really knows the story.
A part-time art dealer. Bill Scarden and Bill Kent were very, very close friends. And there's wonderful portraits on that wall that three of them at least are Bill Scarden's work. And I think it speaks volumes. But anyway, it's very unfortunate these two men are gone. And they had a lot of similarities. And nothing really got in the way of their productions and their hearts. And so even though people might think that it's kind of sorrowful, the kind of lives that people lead in order to make these things. They actually are incredibly joyful. And so Bill Kent had an incredible sweetness about him because he was doing exactly what he wanted and surrounded by wonderful people, especially as he got older, I think. Because I looked him up, I met him as a friend of Bill Scardin's. He came to visit us in Chinatown in New York in the late 50s. And then I lost track of him. I mean, that was a very interesting time because he had this idea that we were going to form a cooperative art gallery. And you can't imagine a more unlikely idea happening. But he really wanted to be a part of the New York art scene, and it soon became quite evident that he wouldn't be on his terms because he was actually doing very large prints that were in the Castelli Gallery. He was really on his way to recognition, but it wasn't on his terms, and so he walked away from that. And I really lost track of him, but I knew that Bill Scardin and he were very close and visited each other, and Bill especially coming here. But after Bill died, unfortunately in his late 50s, I lost track of Bill altogether, and then I just had it in my mind to look him up. And at the time, I'm an artist, but I was also having open studios in my house, which was a very beautiful, my husband designed this house, it made a beautiful gallery. And I came down, first of all, to see Bill again, and then try to persuade him to give up some of his work to put in our open studio. And he gave me a lecture on why I couldn't take one of his sculptures to Boston. And he took this wood sculpture that was all finished, and he whacked it as hard as he could and put a chip out of it. And he said, "This is the reason people can't handle my work." And, you know, he said, "Well, you could have a few prints." And he was getting all exercised because I was coming at him from a commercial point of view. And so anyway, I waited till he calmed down, and I was so convinced that I could sell this work that I talked to him about other things, and then we came back to the subject. And in the meantime, my friend that came down with me, who was kind of scared, went to the bathroom. And then I said, "Bill, I understand your feelings, but I don't think you realize how respectful I would be of your pieces. And I really think that I could find people that would buy them." So he gave it some thought, and he said, "Okay." So he gave me a piece. And then I had a van, and I said, "You know, Bill, if I had one piece, it would be wonderful, but we really should have two. And because people need to see one next to the other." And he thought about that, and when my friend came out of the bathroom, we were loading two of his pieces in the car, and she couldn't believe that we got them. And actually, Chris Downing, my very good friend, bought one of his beautiful carvings of a mud wasp that she has in her house, and then later bought a fork, one of the beautiful forks. And so over the years, I could come down, I could pick out work, and I could bring back work, take work, I could do anything I wanted. And we became really good friends. And Chris would come down with me, and we'd always pick up a lunch halfway between Boston and here at a diner that made a wonderful lunch. And we came down, and he cleared the table in the kitchen, and we'd sit down and we'd have these lunches that we got at the diner that he really looked forward to. And it was just a ritual of coming down, and we were far away from galleries or selling work or anything, but just to visit him. And he's an incredible man. And when thinking about your approach to people that have spent a lifetime pursuing their work is such a rich, I would think, such a rich field, because the art world is a whole thing in itself, but this is very, very different. And these people, they're so amazingly gifted that they've had all this time to develop that other people just couldn't do. And so you have a whole group of artists, I'm sure, probably all through the world, that worked through their lives and never got recognition. And there must be some way that that could be talked about and known, so that the public gets the idea that these people are treasures. And that's, I think, your best bet. So find other artists too. There must be other artists, not ever like Bill Kent, but of equal intensity. And certainly Bill Scarden. We just photographed 2,400 pieces of Bill Scarden's work, so I know what is out there that is just a treasure, you know, for the world. And how to get it out there, I don't know. But I do remember you, not meeting you, but I remember your poetry. And I could still quote some of it. But anyway, I'm delighted.
My pleasure.
Are there others who would like to speak? Hands. No more hands?
Oh, I'll say something.
Oh, yes, okay.
My name's Christine Downing, and Sandy introduced me to Bill. The first time I came here, I came with another friend, Patricia Lynch, who, and when we came, Patricia wrote something. She's not able to be here today, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Bill was about in his early 70s, I think, at the time. And what Patricia wrote was, she was totally amazed, of course, who wouldn't be bowled over by this. But here's this incredibly, I mean, Bill always, we all know he had an incredible presence, but he was quite sexy. And she just said, here's this incredibly sexy man with a single bed. She couldn't make So, but just to pick one theme out of his work, because I think not a lot has been said about what it means. Of course, we all know he was really beautifully educated, classically, it's and the references are really deep. I think that his work is like James Joyce's work. You can enter it and discover the world through it, because he delivers you to the classical period and then restates everything. So he's brought everything that we know into the present. This is a really unusual artist, someone who has command of history. And an example of that would be something, we kind of had a little sort of conversation with a couple of people. One of them was about the piece that is, you've probably seen, it's a nude woman carrying a spectacular phallus, and it's called The One Who Escaped from the Zoo. So the references, just as to analyze one little piece here, the references behind that are to, are this. It tells you about the tension between 5th century philosophical, original thinking, the golden period in Greece, and in balance with this rational world was unleashed sexuality in the Dionysian cult. So existing at the same time, and that image of the nude with a huge phallus on her shoulder with pearls and a hat is a reference to a particular parade called the Phallicon. And that's a Dionysian procession that is represented, I mean, it's all over Greek pots, classic Greek pots. What the piece about The One Who Escaped from the Zoo is about, it refers to the Ladies' Decency Society, and you've probably seen some other prints through, you know, percolating through here, of ladies with hats and gloves and, you know, looking quite proper at a tea party. There are several versions of it. And I think that what the lady who is in the Falcon is referring to is that she's thrown off her clothes and has abandoned herself to this unleashed passion, and that what it refers to is that the ladies in the Ladies Decency Society are the ones who are in cages in the zoo. It's the balance between emotion and intellect. Absolutely classic concern for artists. That's it.
Bill Bendig?
When I was editor of the Art Gallery magazine, we often sought out artists to do stories on them, of course.